The Fuller Award is for our very best Chicago writers. That's what the award is intended for, because we want to honor these writers. We want to get together and do it while we can.
I suppose it's the situation of being African American. I mean, African Americans are not a problem. To be an African American is almost to have an identity clamped on you. You're Igbo, or Wolof, or Yoruba when you got on a slave ship. And sometimes all you did was get off the slave ship. You know, I'm colored. I couldn't figure this. I'm colored. I'm Negro. It's all these pseudonyms. And you're born into this. I was born into this situation where it was mandatory that I be known that I was not fully human. Things that were being said. That's one of the things that drove me. The other thing that drove me perplexed, and it's about the African American middle class, the educated class. My most vivid memory of having my language corrected the day I went to school. And I came speaking the way my grandparents spoke, and this principal said no, and set me down. I was about to eat, and he corrected, you need to say some prayers. To be African American, almost as if in order to be accepted, and you have a reservation on this rare flight, but there's a limitation on the amount of luggage you can carry with you. And somehow they let you know things like the blues and the aspects of your culture cannot go with you. See, you're living with that. Now, in terms of being a writer, I don't know whether I hate to say that, it was not African American literary texts that motivated me to write. I was a freshman in a class of about 250, and I was the only black, and it was Greek literature, the Prometheus, Oedipus. I could not understand their punishment. I'm Christian. What kind of God can do these kinds of things, interfering with people's lives? And I don't know why I was so engaged, but at some point, Professor Newman brought me a collection of short stories, maybe edited by somebody by the name of Gold, and pointed to the name James Baldwin. And it completely changed my life. I'm not a literary critic, but it was the first time in my life that I knew that you could make art out of things that I knew in life. It was the very first time. That is an influence. The last influence is the question of how do you get enough time to be a creative writer? See, you don't write books of poems. You initiate the process of writing a poem, and then you come back and revisit that. If you are fortunate, someone will critique it. In my case, I was hired as a lecturer in the English department at the University of Illinois in 1971, teaching a course in introductories to African American literature. They were concerned about how to understand new black poetry, and I had been published. The thing that struck me, maybe I taught the course twice, hired by the English department, and one day the dean summoned me. You know, Plumpp, I said, yes. He said, you're Sterling Plumpp. I said, yes, I am. And what he literally told me is that he was putting me on a tenure-track contract. That there had been a lot of requests for courses on black studies. And he said, I don't know what that is. He said, I have asked someone to coordinate these courses, and I am moving you from the English department to African American Studies. Don't worry about it. I'm saying, I will tell the head of the English department what I've done, and it might aid you when you come up for a promotion. And for the first time, at the time they appoint you to any kind of professorial line, they have to tell you how you will be evaluated. As a matter of law, that's number one. And the university system is a professorial system. It's not bottom up. You know, so what an assistant professor, associate professor say, it don't mean nothing. You know, professors run the university. People who run the English departments, they don't have to consult the faculty hire people. They may do so, they don't have to. But what happened in my case, I was reviewed. In other words, I was asked to submit everything that I had written, weaknesses and strengths, and I was done that way for 6 years. At the end of the 6 years, you either get tenure or they fire you. And there are two people I need to recognize, because had they not been there, I would have been fired. One is LaVon A. Ruoff, who was a professor of Romantic literature, and she had taught me when she was at Roosevelt University on a different marital name. She had taught me Keats and those people. And at UIC, she was a full professor in English, and she was developing courses on Native American studies. The other one was Michael Anania. At the time you were being considered for a promotion, someone have to write your case and talk about the strengths of your poetry. Anania, who is a year older than I am, grew up in a very diverse community. In fact, the great baseball player Bob Gibson was in his high school. He lived in South Common, a black neighborhood. He had gone to SUNY, knew Larry Neal and Amiri Baraka, and he had a tremendous ear for black poetry. And so he wrote that up. The other thing he knew, the way promotion and tenure works, if every one of you were a faculty member and hated my guts, and if Toni Morrison wrote a glowing letter, I get promoted. You better be able to trump the referees. No, it's a fact. And so that's how I was able to write books The other thing that really helps a writer, particularly if they're a professor, what you get for teaching undergraduate students is a headache. Hate to say that. They don't give you feedback. Every resource you get, but however, when you teach students at the next level, right, they're very bright, very well prepared. And so you can discuss, I suppose, concepts of art. You cannot do that at the undergraduate level. No, one of the things that happens if you're a professor, they tell you, you don't say, what am I teaching? No, they'll tell you, you're teaching a workshop for the doctoral students. No, you're chairing this person. It is something that they tell you. You're in a very delicate position. You're in a very delicate position. You have very bright, well-trained, literate students, and they can't write. Creative writing is something else. You have to have an imagination, and how do I want to say that? You have to have that ability that would want to make whatever you write memorable. You can never be satisfied with what you do as a writer. You're constantly going back, tearing up manuscripts, and doctoral students, you're looking at their work. And a lot of them, I said, I think that she would make a good professor, you know what I mean? Yeah, I recommend her. Not gonna be a creative writer. Even if you wrote as well as T.S. Eliot, if you're not original, you will not make it. There are reasons why people say Faulkner. It's very hard to do what he did. Read some of As I Lay Dying. You read it, you find it, you're not going to repeat that. And to do that in 4 or 5 different books, that is literature. I'm truly honored. The final person I will mention is John Zing. John Zing is a professor, head of the English department at Mississippi Valley State, a traditionally all-black college in Itta Bena, Mississippi. He was born in China, and he grew up on the Mao Zedong. When he was, 9 or 10 years old, he was sent to the countryside for 7 years to be educated by the peasants. Fortunately for him, his father was the head of the police in a city of 11 million. Someone from American University came over, offered him a fellowship to do a doctorate at Southern Miss, and then he became a scholar on Tennessee Williams, but he's Chinese. He writes haiku in Chinese. He publishes in China. And here he is at the traditional all-black college. My appreciation to him, somewhere in 2004, he allowed scholars to do a special issue of his magazine on me. That's number one. Number two, he is on the board of directors of the University Press of Mississippi. And he suggested that he do conversation with Sterling Plumpp. But there's something about that. There were 2 people who had systematically interviewed me before him. One was Jerry Ward, in an interview published in Southern Quarterly about 1984. And the other one was Reggie Gibbons, and I believe that he interviewed me 3 times, and each time he interviewed me was a session of about 5 hours. The interview was published in, I suppose, the Tri-Quarterly online, but however, Zing's interview, because I didn't know I don't think the University of Mississippi Press had any interest in me. You know, he's on the board and he got it. But more importantly, his mentor was the editor of one of the most important magazines to come out of the South called Southern Quarterly. And what happens to you when you're a creative writer, if it's an outstanding magazine, I don't even know whether they read it if you send it in. I don't know that. What happens is the editor will write you. You know, it happened to me on about 3 occasions, once with Epoch from Cornell, maybe Nimrod from Oklahoma, and then the Southern Quarterly, the editor, you know, dear Professor Plumpp, we're doing such and such an essay, and we'd appreciate it if you submit. And what that means, if an editor asks you to submit, it does not mean that he will publish what you submit. You know, often there's dialogue. I'm deeply honored. When you are honored while you're living, you see, and I come back to that. When you're honored while you're living, it's no greater tribute to recognize you. Chicago is one of the places where they have a great forum for the arts. Sterling Plumpp, the poet, owes his whole existence to his grandparent. I was raised by a grandparent born in 1880 and 1890. And they had this, I don't know whether it's peculiar, they had this habit of every morning when they rose for the day, my grandfather would pray for about 30 minutes out loud so the whole house could hear it. And it would be followed by my grandmother. If there was a storm coming, they would fall on bended knee and pray out loud. Now, why is that important? When I was 11, I was taking to church so that my soul would be saved. Black folks at that time believed that when you became 12, you were responsible for your soul, and so you had to be saved. And you could not go to sit on the morning bench and say, I'm saved. It didn't work that way. You were taught that you had to have a conversionary experience. Somehow you had to talk to Christ and say, Christ, I will be yours if you give me some kind of sign. My grandmother told me that when she was on the morning bench, she saw a cluster of stars in the sky. And she closed her eyes and she said, Christ, I will be yours if you separate those stars. And she said, when I opened my eyes, God done put distance between those stars of the night. If you're interested, there's a book. There's a series of 48 books, maybe, called Slave Biography by a man named Redfield. And in the 49th volume, it recounts the conversionary experiences of a number of ex-slaves. What I found out when I saw Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, the language used by black people in prayer and in church being saved was the same language that I was hearing in the blues. Same language. You know, I mean, the tonations, the reverence for the word. It's almost as if Muddy Water was trained to be a blues singer in the black church, the country black church. And I always recognized that I owe a great debt to Billy Branch because I did not have money to get in these blues clubs. No, it's $20, you know. And what happened, Billy had it fixed so I could get in the clubs free. This is not stupid. I could get in the club free, and they wanted to charge me $1 for any drink I bought. You know, for 30, 40 years. And that's true. And finally, I owe my daughter and son-in-law a great debt because of the life and death experience. Well, it's somewhere around February the 13th, 2018. Maybe I had pneumonia. I thought I had pneumonia. I don't know how I was feeling, but I was not breathing evenly. And my daughter said, "You should go to the doctor." So I go to the doctor. My physician is a cardiologist. But however, before I got in to see him, because I was complaining about being pneumonia, they took an x-ray of my chest. And when the doctor, the cardiologist, when they saw the x-ray, they literally said I should be in intensive care the next 5 seconds. You don't have pain with it. And I did not know until the next morning when the cardiologist came around. He said something to the effect that you have pneumonia, yes, but there's a tremendous buildup of fluid in your lungs. And so when that happens, it's called congestive heart failure. You know, I don't know whether it shook me because I was not in pain. There was no blockage. I say this without my daughter and son-in-law, because I was not in enough. I was not struggling to breathe. You know, so that's the bad news. The good news is over the last 6 months. I've gotten to the point where I can go to the gym, ride a stationary bike an hour without stopping, work out with weights for 20 minutes, walk a mile briskly 6 days a week without feeling any pain or being fatigued. And with that, I thank you very much.